I think this is going to have a big impact on the entire world outside of West and Central Africa. We've kept thinking of this as a disease that was relegated to this very small portion of the world, and now, while we've been told that we live in a much more globalized society where everyone's at risk, if anyone's at risk, now we've seen it. And I was there in West Africa in April, and at that time you could have predicted, and I did, along with many other people, that this was going to happen. You're going to see patients with Ebola that get on planes and travel all over the world. I think it's going to raise a lot of people's awareness of this, but it's also going to translate into a vaccine trial, which is already underway, and probably get a vaccine, within the next year or so. I don't think it'll probably come in time for this outbreak. I think this outbreak will eventually die down, and it's going to be a big challenge in West Africa. It's going to require literally military troops to do things that are culturally difficult in some of these places, stop public burials, go into people's homes, stop the spread of this disease, this virus. But it can be done. It's been done, 15, 20 times over the last 40 years successfully, and it will be done this time as well. But we know that there are pandemics that can spread around the world. Ebola is not going to be that pandemic, but something's going to happen. And this is a reminder that our public health system and the way that we approach even what we consider remote diseases in faraway places are things that we always have to pay attention to. I think the science that is now taking place will ultimately make a difference. Most people have agreed on one thing in this whole issue, is that we need to actually see data to make some more informed decisions. We haven't had the data in this country. It's very hard to study something that is, by definition, doesn't have any medical benefit and is considered to be in the highest class of drugs of abuse. That's changing. Despite the fact that it's still in that class, many more research studies are getting funded and things are starting to move forward. That's a big change in how we viewed this over the last 50 or 60 years. When people start looking at the data, if the data is favorable, I think ultimately that may sort of mandate that the scheduling of this changes from Schedule 1 to something lower than that. That's what has to happen. There's always going to be a political side to this issue, some of which, even as someone who's studied this now for a few years, I'm not sure I fully understand that still, what exactly drives that. But despite that, I think the science ultimately will trump over politics. America's healthcare system, I think, fundamentally has been about one thing that the medical establishment really wanted, and that was to create a more healthy America. We believed by increasing access to healthcare, a very important thing, that was going to improve the health of Americans. And it was never a given. We know people who have wonderfully good health care who are still wildly unhealthy. So it was never a direct correlation. So I think what has to happen, if you had to start from the beginning and say, okay, we get to create the healthcare system now, what do we really want it to look like? We want it to look like a country where it creates a healthier America. And I think we have the ability to do that. What Obamacare has done is solve one of the or at least start to solve one of the big problems here, and that is that there are certain people, no matter what, could not get access to a system that could provide that care. And so, that's going to improve, I think, over the next several years, but making sure that we don't need the system as much in the first place, that we stay healthier in the first place, doing things that are much less expensive than what we do right now, I think is ultimately what we want. So lower costs, better health.